You guys are about to watch an interview with my client, Steve, who's lost 60 pounds of fat while building 3 businesses. 95% of you guys are going to watch this video and do nothing with it. 5% of you guys are going to be so inspired by Steve's story that you're going to take action just like he did. And for those 5%, there is a link down below where you can apply for coaching and book a call. Without further ado, here's the video. We got connected a few years back. What led you to coming into the studio and starting to work on fitness?
Probably the fact that I was like 185 in college and I'm like 6 foot with the right pair of shoes on. And by the time I got to you 4 years later, I was walking around at 252.
Yeah.
Like, it was probably like I was obese by every standard. Like completely.
Yeah. Do you ever think back to how you let yourself get to that point?
Yeah. Yeah. I think as I was younger and maybe more immature, I was like, oh, I have a mental health issue. And like now looking back at it, it's like I did not have a mental health issue. I had a discipline and self-esteem issue. And like it wasn't the mental health issue that made me fat. It was the me getting fat giving me a mental health issue.
Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah. I mean, that's just like brutal honesty. And like, I know some people hear that and they think like, oh, that's like toxic masculinity. I don't care if other people's brains are different. That's just how my brain works. Like, I didn't have body positivity when I was fat because like I knew how terrible I felt. Like sitting in a chair like this when I was fat, like feeling my gut push through my belt and like the pressure of that, or like getting on an airplane and like being uncomfortable because like my organs were like smushing together. People don't talk about that. Like that sucked. It sucked. So yeah, then I just came to you and I needed a change and we got the change. So that was pretty dope.
We did.
Let me adjust.
You went from, so then you got up to 255. You went from 255 to now, where are you at?
252 to 255, somewhere between there. It was like depending on what it was. But yeah, now I teeter between like walking around at like 185 to 190, depending on like if I had a heavy sushi dinner the night before and weigh in the next morning, retaining a little water.
And so you achieved that transformation because you got busier when you started to now you had one business. You're starting your second one. You now have 3 businesses, all of which have probably 3 to 10x since we met. And so typically what you see is when people are building and they're working on their career and building businesses and they're entrepreneurs, they use the busyness as the excuse as to why they can't get fit. But you've continued to get more fit while you've gotten busier and your businesses have grown. How have you been able to manage both?
It's a good question. I think what happens when people let themselves go is like you get so used to the feedback loop of like, all right, I'm sick of it. Tomorrow I'm starting at 5 a.m. at the gym and I'm going to completely transform my life. And then like what I noticed is I had tried that like 5, 6 times. I tried all these different things, but like that didn't fit into my life naturally because it wasn't like repeatable systems. Like I'm a systems guy now, obviously with the businesses. So I'm going to do that in my personal life too. And so a big portion of it with you was like, it was borderline like therapy for like a roundabout way of like basically unlearning like, dude, it's not this like crazy radical painful change where you're getting up at 5 a.m. you're only eating broccoli and bland chicken. It's like, dude, we do the right repeatable steps and we track it and look at the data and we just repeat that over and over. And it's like, honestly, it's funny. It's like the same things that I talk to at like my employees and my businesses. It's like, we don't need to recreate the world overnight. We need to do the same right things over and over again over a long period of time. And so I don't know if it resonates with anyone else, but like for me, I had always chased like I'm sick of it. I'm going to change my life. And then I would change my life for 2 weeks. And then like the radical changes were unsustainable. But like the system that we built is like, it takes discipline, but it also is much more manageable because it's like people underestimate what they can do people overestimate what they can do in a month or a year and underestimate what they could do in 2 years to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So like that is true in business. That's true in fitness. It's like you're not,
Absolutely.
if it took me 4 to 5 years to get fat, like to get that Asian pear shape. It took me 4 to 5 years. Like, and then I wanted to fix it
Yeah.
like overnight. And so I think so much of it is being so brutally honest with yourself as a man. Now I'm sure if it's a lady, I'm sure it works too. But for me, it's like I know for me as a man, like that foo-foo stuff did not work for me. It was like I looked in the mirror and was like, dude, you are fat and ugly. Like that's what worked for me. And again, it
Yeah.
sounds terrible, but like that level of self-honesty and like somewhat self-awareness, like you almost have to have that conversation with yourself if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
because then it's like no one's coming to save me.
Totally.
No one's coming to save me. Like
When you
if
first came in,
yeah,
yeah. My bad, bro. Sorry, I cut
no,
you
you're
off.
good. No, I mean I'm passionate about it, but like it was the conversation of like if this trajectory keeps up, like I am literally the fat friend.
Mm.
Like I am obese. Like that is a terrible feeling. Like it affected everything. I was tired all the time. So yeah, like I just had to have that brutal, honest conversation. And you don't mince words either. And like I think that's an important part.
First thing that I do with anybody, and the first thing I did with you, I remember our first conversation, is why is this goal important? Because I am well aware that there are thousands of methods and probably 10 to 100 methods that somebody's tried before they're sitting either next to me in that chair or on a Zoom call like this. And so I know for sure that if you don't have a strong enough reason, like if you can't identify with why that change is important beyond just wanting to look better or lose 10 pounds for the wedding, then it's
Mhm.
not going to stick. And you spoke to me about the man that you need to be to get the results that you want to get. And now I'm sitting in front of that guy. And so for me, that's a proud moment. Like this is a cool thing to be your friend, to have seen that journey, to be a part of it still is incredible.
Dude, thank you. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, I think that hits the nail on the head. Is like while the change happens, like professionally, income wise, relationship wise, fitness wise, like I wasn't there in any aspect of my life, but I always had this like nagging feeling of like I wasn't doing enough. And I think part of that was just immaturity, and part of that was just like emotional immaturity, like EQ immaturity. But it's funny, the order of events were like I fixed my fitness while getting my businesses off the ground, and my businesses are fine for me. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm like some 100 millionaire. 3 to 4 years after working with you, they're a lot further along now than where they were back then. And at least for me, the order of events were like I fixed my fitness and I got that in line, and I fixed my health, and then my performance and everything else became more clear. Like my energy was up, my, again, call it vanity, call it whatever, my self-esteem was up, like my emotional intelligence seemed to rise, because like when you commit to something in life, everything else kind of fits in and like falls in line. And the thing for me was like I had hired personal trainers before. And it's like the same conversation I have with my clients in all of my businesses, and I have my sales guys have with clients, and like my onboarding team is like, we're not the first person who sold you this type of product, right? Like we're not the first person in our space in any of my three businesses, not by a long shot. Like I have a business, all three of my businesses are businesses that exist everywhere in the country, tons of people do them. But it's the same thing with you, is like there's other personal trainers. I have hired personal trainers in the past that didn't get me to my result. And so with my own customers, I set the expectation. You have hired other people like us before. We're different. Here's why we're different. Here's the social proof. We're different. Like you showing me a bunch of dudes that look like me, sound like me, talk like me, that all got shredded naturally and everything else. Like that's the social proof I needed. Like, okay, I'm in the right spot. But then two is like you set the expectation, like, dude, the actions that have gotten you here are not the actions that are going to get you the result. Clearly,
Right.
look at you. Like what you've done in the past, the fad diets, the keto, the intermittent fasting, the 5 a.m. gym calls 7 days a week that phase out in 2 weeks. Like that's what got me to this point. Self-awareness, clearly not the model, right? And so for you, it was like I come into it like, okay, I actually have to commit to the system that is different and
Yeah.
lean into the fact that it's different. And so it is different. But when I came into the call with you, I was like, oh, here I go again, like, another personal trainer call. But it was like, dude, that's clearly not what this is. So
Yeah.
it was cool and it's been
Yeah.
cool. But like, dude, like full transparency, like completely changed my life. And the trajectory for me, fitness got fixed, everything else got fixed. And it's like, if I showed 2020, 2021 Steve, the current version of Steve, like 3-4 years later, I would be like, dude, here's a blank check. Like, just go. Like,
Yeah.
but it's before people get the result, it's harder to convey that, like in everything that we do. It's the same thing in my thing, but it's like now, at least, like for you, like it's pretty easy because you have like, and I can clearly tell because you're way busier and you don't really have a client problem anymore. You have a like, let's get the right people in that are going to commit to the system problem now, which is like every person's dream. So that's cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, it's like now you're kind of in that same spot. It seems like that I'm in where it's like, no, the people we bring on, like they need to commit. And it's not like you just sign up and
Yeah.
boom, 20 pounds go away.
Right.
Like I put in the work and I put in the system and I committed to the system.
You
And
did.
that's just what worked for me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
The
it's going
thing,
to work for them. That's just like, I can only speak from my own experience.
the thing that's hard to quantify, I've been able to see it, you've been able to feel it, but you really don't notice it until you look back, is everything that we do in this program is quantifiable, it's measurable, so that we're making, again, that systematic progress. What's the goal? Are we taking steps to get there? But what you can't measure is the confidence that comes with being on point and seeing a different person when you look in the mirror every morning when you get out of the shower. That's what you can't quantify. And so for you, I wonder if like, can you feel that? And do you think that's changed how you run your business, how you run your relationships and been in relationships?
Yeah. Yeah, it has, but it's like when I was at that point of like despair and like lack of self-confidence, I didn't really know like what that felt like. And I wasn't conscious about the transformation until like randomly some situation brings it to light. And so for me, one of the things professionally was I would notice like as I got bigger and like less confident, I would be met differently in professional situations. Like just
Mm.
like by people in meeting rooms, by people in employment settings, like my voice. And we could talk about like the problems in society that this is the case all day long. That's fine. But like part of it is that I look more the part, like I look like I have my, together, which I'm sure that's part of it. But also, it's like I enter a room differently now because of my confidence of like the thing that I knew I was selling myself short in.
Mm.
And like, again, this is not like the most politically correct conversation in the world. And a lot of people would say, like, that's just like, that's such a vanity, like almost borderline, like red pill way of speaking, but it's real and it's true. And anyone that says it's not is lying. And it's not like one day you just like, oh, I reached the goal. It's like you start seeing these little things and I'd be like, oh, like, for example, I'm single, right? So it's like, oh, like I used to really like not get attention from women that I, in my mind, thought that I should get attention from now. And like, I want to, like, that girl's beautiful. Like, I want to take her on a date, like maybe see if she could be my wife or something like that. Like 2-3 years ago, I wasn't really getting in the room. And so it's like those things where now I'm looking back and I'm like, oh, that's a tangible thing. Like, oh, like I can have a conversation with a pretty girl now that I used to not be able to. And like the same thing happens professionally. Like, oh, I'm getting speaking engagements for my career. Like, funny enough, when I was fat and my businesses were smaller and my what wasn't together, I didn't get speaking engagements for work.
Go
And so,
figure.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like, again, everybody's
Yeah.
situation would be different. I'm only speaking from my experience, but like that has been tangibly like noticeable for me. And so I don't know, man. It's just like it's been super cool. I've been like, there's very few times in my life, professionally, personally, anything else, where I've given somebody my money and then, 6 months later, 9 months later, 12 months later, I'm like, dude, I would do that again. What I was told on the initial phone call is exactly what I got and then more.
Mm.
So like I talk about it like in my businesses too, like you get sold by an agency for something, you get sold by an ad company for something, and the initial phone call it gets you all fired up emotionally, you get sold on something, and then 3 months later you're like, that was not implemented the way I expected, right? Like
Yeah.
this, and I think there's like one other vendor that I've used, like in my professional life where I've said like there's probably two, I've probably hired 100+ people for different things in the last 5 years, personally, professionally, everything else. And I would say like probably 2 out of 100 did exactly what they said they were going to do. And I was just as happy that I paid them, for lack of a better term, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months after doing it, that I was the first day when I was fired
Yeah.
up and the momentum was
Yeah.
there. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's cool, man. That's good feedback. Now, and I know you're busy. I don't want to take too much of your time, but one last question is people see a transformation photo. They see before and after. And sometimes people who want to make that change, they're like, that would feel so good. But what a lot of people don't realize about fitness and business is the result that people aspire to, so that before and after, when the person hits the after, they're still like, I got more to do. It's not like you
Mhm.
just arrive one day. And I think that's people's perspective of fitness. I can't wait to be that before and after. But what they don't see is like the after, you've actually embodied principles that led to that result. But because of the momentum and because of human nature, and especially with high performers, you want more. Not like you're yearning for more, but you know you're capable of it. So, what do you think is next for you now? And how do you feel now that you are a before and after that people will look at and get inspired by? Do you feel like you're just done? You just retire from fitness now? Or like, what's next?
No, it's built into my day to day more now, so it's more sustainable. Like I could sit here and act like I'm 100% compliant and perfect and whatever else, but like, dude, I'll still have a weekend where I, crush 3, 4 beers and like
Yeah.
wake up with a swollen face and all that. Like that still happens, but it's like it's the trajectory is this instead of like my valleys, like my like fall offs. Like everybody in fitness has like maybe like waves of like, oh, one day I like went out with the boys and like, college football was on, whatever, I was had a bad day. But the difference now is like when I have a bad day, it's a bad half a day, and then I'm right back on the plan
Yeah.
versus 3 years ago it was I have a bad day and it turns into a bad week, that turns into a bad month, that turns into like everything else, and then whatever else. So like, to answer your question, what's next? Like I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing because I like the results. And outside of that, like because I have this platform for somebody, like if you dub in my before photo, like I think it's like super cool to like be able to explain to somebody the timeline that happens to anybody that goes through this, like what you're doing, is the first 2, 3 weeks, you're super fired up, you're super motivated, you're ready. And then life starts to happen. And like, if you have the mental, if you're aware of that going in, like, dude, everybody's motivated for like the first 2 weeks, you start something, 3 weeks, you start something. That's when everybody does the stuff. It's the week 3, 4, 5 that you like actually put these processes into your day to day, when the momentum and the excitement, and you wake up tired one day and like something happens personally, work, whatever else, and you still stick to the plan. What happens is like once you power through like that first 3, 4 months where it's built into your life and your systems, then it gets easier because you start to see results. Like
Yeah.
you're doing arms and that, like, especially if you're fat, like I was fat. Like once you power through that 3, 4 months and it's actually habits and built, then you're like in the gym and you like, you start to see a vein, or like
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, dude, like my pants are loose. And then you've got these
Yeah.
pants. Like for me, it was like I got these pants in my closet from college, and like 6 months in, I could like squeeze into them again, and they had been buried in the back collecting dust.
Yeah.
That's funny, but like those little things were like crazy to me.
Yeah.
I have this Lululemon pullover that like is like Lululemon makes clothes. Like the old CEO said, like I make clothes for skinny people. I don't make clothes for fat people. So they like trim, you know? And like I had this like super nice 3/4 zip, whatever pullover that like I had not worn in like 3 years. And like I rock that thing all the time now, and I rock it probably more than I should because I can wear it again. So like
But,
those are like the tangible wins that happen. So as you start seeing a little success, the hardest part is before you see the result. Then
yeah.
you see the result and you're like, oh, I want more. It's like a drug, dude. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I want more of that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's,
So,
it builds the case for the progression. It's like,
yeah.
oh, I did the thing that I didn't really want to do, but I'm doing it anyway, long enough where it'd be unreasonable to then see some success. You see the success, which affirms the behavior, and it becomes a positive feedback loop. I become more of who I want to be when I do X, Y, and Z. And that rhymed, but it wasn't supposed to. I get more of what I want.
It's a
Yeah, it's a
bar.
bar. It's a bar.
Yeah. So it's just like, dude, like any like I'm such an implementation guy. Like concept is like stick to the plan, lose weight. The thing that I liked about you is it like took the guesswork out of it for me. Like the gun was pointed, like I just had to pull the trigger and keep pulling the trigger. Like the gun's loaded, the clip's in it, the whatever's pulled back. Like I just had to pull the trigger. And so that's what I liked about it is I didn't want to think. I just wanted to go. Give me
Yeah.
a checklist, I will do it, and then let's go. So like that's what works for me in my scattered brain. I don't know if that works for everybody. That's just what worked for me.
Yeah. Avoid the unnecessary complexities like the plague, man. The fad diets, the 75 hards, and just do what matters. That's what
Yeah,
we
man.
do.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, bro.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate it. You changed my life and then you become one of my best friends in the process. So that's been a bonus too.
Likewise, man. Who would have thought?
I didn't.
Well, brother, I appreciate your time, and I know you got lives to change yourself. And so we'll chat soon, okay? All right, brother. Keep winning. Take care. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. For the 5% of you who are ready to take action, there is a link down below to book a call. Worst case scenario, it's not a good fit, but you learn something new. Best case scenario, you change your life.